Hello everyone. Today I want to show you a triangulation problem here. And this is from the game Botvinnik with the white pieces and Smyslov with the black pieces. This is from their World Championship match in Moscow 1958. So first let's discuss triangulation. It usually occurs in king and pawn endgames, although it can occur in rook endings and other types of positions. But when we think about triangulation, it often occurs in a simple king and pawn ending, like the kind that you see here. And for those that are not acquainted with the definition, let me just explain um, what triangulation is. And there's a good definition that Glenn Flear uses, and I think that it you know expresses the idea in a succinct manner. So triangulation is when one king can move um, on three adjacent squares in the shape of a triangle, and uh, and the idea is to keep the same position, right? But uh, with the opposing king to move. So usually what happens is the stronger side has three adjacent squares that it can move in the shape of a triangle, and the weaker side only has two squares. And what this means is that the stronger side can use three moves to return to the same position. But the enemy king cannot do the same because he only has two moves. This gains a tempo and reaches the same position with the other player to move. So that might sound a little, hazy, but after this example, and there's plenty of them, but after this one, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Um, Now, just a quick warning, if you want to pause the video before my analysis and set this position up, and it's white to move, Botvinnik to move, and think about um, you know what you would do in this position. Be my guest and just press pause. All right, so now we're going to go on with the analysis. Now, looking at this position, we can see that material is equal on both sides, but uh, two things stand out. One is the double pawns on the e file possessed by Botvinnik, which seem particularly uh, useless and crippled. Pawns of the worst type, right? And Smyslov has a passed pawn on the G file, um, and which Botvinnik is presently blockading. Um, if Smyslov did not have that pawn on the G file, um, White has an interesting feature in his position whereby he has access to the black position via the queen side. For instance, if this pawn was gone, then in some variations, this king would have some access via the light squares to the black queen side pawns. Meanwhile, black does not have the same access to the white uh, pawns. Yes, the white pawns on the queen side. For example, again taking this pawn away, if this king were able to magically travel over to the queen side, notice that the pawn on e4 is blocking access to this square. And if black was to travel on c5, he still could not penetrate the queen side because of the b3 pawn. He's blocked. And we can see d3 is also blocked by the pawn on e3. And we also see over here it's blocked. So black has no way to penetrate on that side of the board. Meanwhile, white can. If we are to mention one of the positives here, as a slight caveat to double pawns, we can see that they cover quite a bit of territory, and they are good defensively. And as you can see, they serve well to keep the black king out. Um, if the black king were ever trying to penetrate on the queen side over there. That's about the best feature of double pawns, is that they can cover a large amount of territory. Now back to this position. It's white to move, and Botvinnik has to figure out a way to keep Smyslov from promoting that passed pawn. All right. So Botvinnik played the move King G2. Let me just mention one more thing. Notice that in this position, all pawns are fixed. So it's basically, um, a Zugzwang problem. You do not want to, you know, uh, allow your opponent to force you to be on the move in these type of positions. It's usually bad to be forced to move here. So it's this idea of maintaining the opposition that dictates the play. So Botvinnik plays King G2 here. All right, and I'll give you an example to show you why he played King G2. Say, for instance, if you play King H2, then black, in this case Smyslov, is able to just take the opposition by playing King H4. And notice Botvinnik would have to move King G2. All right, now Smyslov cannot take the opposition anymore, so he plays G3, basically just losing a move. King G1, and now King H5. So some of you are saying, wow, why King H5? It's all about the opposition. If King H3, for example, then simply King H1, again, gaining opposition. And remember some of my other endgame lessons where I talk about key squares. White is restricting black from entering into the key squares. Alright, so check those videos out if you're not sure about key squares. So King H1 would take place, and then you would just have a standoff after King G4 and King G2. You see how white would maintain the opposition there. If G2, then the game would end in stalemate after King G1 and then King G3. And of course, if black just backed off, then the pawn would drop on G2. This is why understanding the opposition is very important. This is why here black would play the move King H5. Now, King F1, and unfortunately for white, he's lost here. Now, this position, the kings are in opposition to each other. Now, this is a long distance opposition, but there's three squares in between, and the kings are on the same color. So after King F1, now King G5. All right, and this is a way for black to make progress without losing the opposition. Because now after King G5, and again, remember, if he just tried to barge in like a bull in a china shop with King G4, then white will seize, seize the opposition. So King G5. And again, the same thing. If white played King to G2, that would be a big mistake because, again, gaining the opposition. And so that's what these strange looking moves are about here. So King G1, again, this is our sideline right here. King H4. King G2. And now we see that white is forced now to give up the opposition, and this is the purpose of triangulation. And after King G4, black will win in all lines. For example, if King G1, then simply King F3, picking up those E pawns. And the same thing after king F1, just king F3. If king H1, black gains the opposition again. And now after king G1, G2, the white king is then forced to be squeezed out, allowing black to access the critical square and queen this pawn. So thank you for your patience with that. Let's go back now. And this is again why king H2 is not played here. You don't want to give up the opposition. This type of problem. So king G2, Botvinnik puts up the stiffest defense. Smyslov plays king H4. And now Botvinnik takes the opposition. However, this pawn is no longer fixed, so Smyslov can use it, right, in an attempt to gain back the opposition. And this is why you want your pawns to be mobile. And this is a bad setup when you have all these fixed pawns. So G3 by Smyslov, and Botvinnik played king G1. Again, you should know by the last variation I showed you why king G2 would be a mistake. Because you just give up the opposition, and now the white king is forced to move away. This is why Botvinnik played king G1. Now, it's a critical time for Smyslov. Smyslov is a great endgame expert in his own right, and he plays the move king G5. And now, again, you should be understanding at this point, if king G4, then Botvinnik would be very happy because he would just simply play king G2 and getting a draw. But king G5. Okay. Now, I want you to take a moment and take a snapshot in your mind of this position right here, if you will. Or if you have a chessboard, set this position up and just keep it there as I go on with the game, because then you'll be able to see the triangulation. Because right here in this position, it's black to move. However, Smyslov would like Botvinnik to have to move in this position. This position, if you're black, you want white to have to move. But unfortunately, for black right here, the rules of chess dictate that players must move in alternate turns. So here, Smyslov has to move, although he does not want to move. So here is where triangulation comes in. It's creating the same position, but with the other player to move. So right here, this is the position Smyslov wants, but he wants Botvinnik to move. All right? So let's look how it's done. And I want you to see the shape of the triangle here visually. So just imagine this being the top of the triangle. And you have this right here. That's one of the bases. And then you have here, that's your second base. So you see, this is where you get triangulation from. Okay? Now, again, this is the position that Smyslov wants, but he wants Botvinnik to have to move here. So watch what happens. He plays king to G5. Now notice, again, black still has the opposition. There's 1, 2, 3 squares in between the black king and the white king. Botvinnik plays king H1. Notice once again, if king, keep emphasizing this right here. But if Botvinnik were to play this move, it would be a big blunder because of simple king G4. So Botvinnik played king h1, and you would get the same continuation of king f1, or similar continuation. I'll show you that in a second. But king h1 here, king h5. All right, fantastic endgame play by Smyslov. King h5. Again, he doesn't just barge in. If Smyslov makes a mistake and just dives in with king g4, then just king g2, just draws right on the spot. Okay. If Smyslov comes in with king h4, again, just simple king g1 by Botvinnik. Why? Because if king h3, there's the opposition, can't make any progress. If king g4, same thing, can't make progress. This is why the understanding of triangulation is so important. So Smyslov plays king h5. Remember, he's trying to set up that ideal position again, but with Botvinnik having to move. So there it is, king g1. Guess what? King h4. Same position. It's the same position, and that's why I told you to set up the position on a separate board, because if you look at your board, you'll have the same exact position, but with the other player to move. And I'll go back a few moves just so you can see. Here it is. And you see the position didn't change, although I actually moved. If you could see my whole screen with the actual moves. This is after the third move with king g1, except it was Smyslov's move, and he had played this, king g5 exclamation mark. You see? This is the move now after Smyslov played king h4, and now it's Botvinnik's turn to move. Botvinnik doesn't want to move, but now he has to move. And that, my friends, is triangulation. And that little, I don't know if you can hear the little click in the background, that's me switching the positions back and forth, but notice nothing's changing on the board, because I just want to get into your minds, what triangulation is, and you should have it already. I mean, I'm usually pretty repetitive and verbose in my videos. So, part of it is because I like to talk a lot, and another part of it is just because I love playing chess a lot, and I get excited. So forgive me if sometimes I run a little bit too long, but hopefully you learn the principle. So anyway, let's keep going. So king h4, Smyslov has completed the transition, and now it's Botvinnik to move. And chess is a game of force, and he's forced to move by the rules of chess. There's no pass in chess, right? If you could say I pass, then the position would be a draw. But he has to move, and to his detriment, he has to go king h1. And now you can see, we've been talking about the opposition the whole video. You can see it's a wrap now. You just simply play king h3, like Smyslov here, king g1, g2, and the king, Botvinnik, is squeezed out. He has to go to king to f2, and that's it. That's all she wrote. Real simple. Going back where Botvinnik played king h1, if he tries king g2, again, opposition, force him away, and then you attack the weak e pawns. Going back again, if king f1, h3, king g1, g2, and you get that same variation whereby the white king is squeezed out to f2. So hopefully you learned something in this video, and about triangulation today. And I hope to hear your responses. Please like, subscribe, And if there's any questions, or please feel free to leave them in the comment section. All right, I'll see you guys later.